really the talks today is a continuation of trying to improve the relations. I'm joined now by Đorđe Bojović, who's an expert in Balkans. Đorđe, what do you expect from today? I mean, as we saw at the weekend in the United States, there was hailing some sort of a victory. First of all, tell us about what was agreed and how it can be improved here in Brussels.
Well, I think that the first thing that should be said about the so-called Washington agreement, that it's not an agreement in itself. There is no jointly signed copy, and even the copies that President of Serbia, Aleksandar Vučić, and Prime Minister of Kosovo, Abdullah Hoti, signed are different. Like there is a point in the copies that they signed that is differently speaking about Israel's recognition on one side and Serbia opening the embassy in Jerusalem. So I wouldn't even call it an agreement. What it clearly lacks is the political framework. It only talks about mostly the vague economic terms, and they call it economic normalization of relations, even though the conflict between Kosovo and Serbia is primarily a political one, and that's why we look at the European Union that can actually deliver something in that regard. What we expect from the Brussels-led talk is actually to find a way how both Serbia and Kosovo can continue their respective EU paths, be it, as you said, a recognition or some other way of, as they call it, normalization of relations. We are yet to see, because there are 5 EU non-recognizers of Kosovo, so it's still ambiguous what is going to be the final comprehensive agreement.
So are you saying now in Brussels, when the two sides meet with Josep Borrell, that they won't be improving on what happened at the weekend in DC? Because as you're saying, what was agreed at the DC really wasn't what was being hailed as a victory by the United States government.
I think it was primarily for Trump's flagging electoral campaign. He massively needed a foreign policy win, and that's what both Richard Grenell and he pushed for. I don't think it's something that is going to please definitely his electoral base, be it American Jews or white evangelists. So I think that's, for them, the Israeli matters mean a lot, and I think that's primarily aimed at the U.S. Presidential campaign. He even mentioned that Kosovo is a Middle East country in his tweet post-agreement. So I don't think that they really cared much about the final settlement between Kosovo and Serbia. What they were primarily focused on is to get a win for Israel as it happened, and on the second side, on the other hand, is to have something for the electoral campaign.
So what do you think can be delivered on today? I mean, the EU is obviously not hoping for any major breakthrough, and I suppose the end point is the recognition of Kosovo by Serbia. We're quite a bit of away from that, though, aren't we?
I think we are quite away from it, because what we see from the Serbian officials is that they are not ready yet to step up on that. They are ready to negotiate, to talk about everything but to concede on the recognition. So it's a major question for the EU. What on one side, as the Serbian side would put, is the concession that they can get for the recognition, and on the other side, whether the full normalization in relation actually entails the full formal recognition.
And just final question, of course there's 5 member states in the EU that don't recognise Kosovo. What's their position in these talks? Are they willing to eventually, formally recognise Kosovo so the EU can have a full policy, united policy?
So each and every of these 5 non-EU EU member states that do not recognise formally Kosovo have its own reasons why it's so. I think what they actually wait is the final settlement between Serbia and Kosovo that will allow not only Serbia but also these 5 EU member states, including countries such as Spain or Greece, to actually establish its full diplomatic relations with Kosovo. So I think for them is to wait what is going to be the outcome of Serbia-Kosovo talks in order to move forward in